Hey there, Beon. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thank you. I heard you and David on the show last week and was pretty excited to be on this week. So
Oh, the Inspection News podcast.
yeah, it was. I mean, it was good. It was good listening. Besides all the cringeworthy Star Wars jokes, but other than that, it was pretty good.
When he mixed up his nerd culture, I almost lost it on him. I'm sorry. That's unacceptable to me. You cannot mix up your nerd culture. But no, it was a great podcast. But a lot of guys have asked for you to be back on the show because they like having you on for some weird reason. I have no idea why.
Yes, I also have no idea. But anyways, here I am. Give the people what they want.
I thought about another name for a podcast. If you could do like a podcast just yourself, and you could call it Beyond the Show. Get
Be
it?
on the show.
Be on the show, and then Beyond the Show.
Funny. All these years of having a first name as Beon, and I've never heard anybody do a play on words like that before.
Yeah,
That's
never,
amazing.
right? It's
Yeah.
never happened.
It was actually, I guess, one of the cards my parents got when I was born. It had the whole thing was just a play on my name with being on everything. So I guess it's as old as me, you could say.
Well, I mean, my name is Ian, so I had to go through life without people ever being able to pronounce my name unless they were British. Now it's more common, but I was little and people are like, Ian, Ian. They're like, your name doesn't have an E in it. I'm like, yeah, no, okay.
I didn't know that there were many different ways of pronouncing Ian. The other day, somebody was talking about Hurricane Eon.
Eon.
Hurricane Eon, and I'm like, we had one of those, a Hurricane Eon, and I'm looking like
Eon Miller.
Like Ian, I gotcha.
Like my Big Fat Greek wedding. Yeah,
Eon.
Eon Miller. Yeah. But
that's good stuff.
so we both have very tease-worthy names, I suppose.
Well, we won't start talking about P and Ian again. So
Yeah, Peonian. No, we'll stay off of that subject. Boy, everything comes full circle on this podcast, doesn't it?
It does, man. Yeah.
So I thought we have Beon on, so we can't just talk about any subject. We have to talk about big picture stuff because it's Beon's the big show here. So I wanted to talk about where in the world our industry is going. So you listened to last week's podcast with Inspection News, or a couple weeks ago rather, with Inspection News. We see what's going on with Porch. We see what's going on with American Family. And actually, I have no way to confirm this, so I'm not going to say it, but there's some changes going on there from what I hear, and we'll see how that ends up. And we see all these big companies kind of jumping into our field. Matter of fact, just the other day, Beon, we had a venture capital company, one of, I don't know how many at this point, want to sit down with us and talk about, hey, how can we get into this field with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It actually is funny. I didn't even tell you. You get the emails too, but just this past week was probably a new record. I got three reaching out wanting to talk to us about venture capital and getting into the space. So yeah, everybody's looking. They're seeing the potential in our market segment.
So, and when we say venture capital, these are like real venture capital companies that we look up, and a lot of them we actually recognize just from, oh wow, that's a big company. They've invested in XYZ that we use every day, and it's like, multi-billion-dollar companies wanting to get into our field of 20 to 30,000 home inspectors.
Mm-hmm.
That's nutty.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a big impact on what our day-to-day looks like, and a lot of us don't think about that. I've asked others before, do you think this has an impact on your day-to-day? The answer always invariably is no, until I start asking other questions. What happened years ago? Okay. What's different now? What happened in between? And then they put the dots together. They're like, oh, you're right. That did change how I do business.
Mm-hmm.
Before, we didn't think about who had our data. We did an inspection. We did a report. I always say to guys, remember when we used to just to inspect? All we did was inspect. That's what we did. Now it's like you have to be half a programmer to understand what they're doing with your data, how all that works, who's getting into the field. They affect how we inspect, oftentimes what we inspect, and what we charge.
Mm-hmm.
even the inspection schools, that's kind of the next big field that's being looked at by these larger companies. They're looking at acquiring and or partnering with inspection schools
Mm-hmm.
so that they can affect all the new guys coming on the market.
Mm-hmm.
It's really insane. You know,
Yeah.
if we're in a pool of 100 inspectors, 30 of them are newer guys that got taught by, big money corporations.
Mm-hmm.
That affects what people expect in your market. That
Mm-hmm.
affects how we inspect. So
Mm-hmm.
I get all sorts of worked up with this Beon because it's a wild change.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Now, just to understand, because I don't even know, because obviously a lot of the focus of these companies, I mean, we look at Porch, we look at AmFam, we look at even what Inspectify is doing, right? They're money makers, their revenue generators are on the back end, on the tail end of the transaction with a home inspector. So we've got a lead. They had their home inspected. We have some insight into the condition of the home. We can offer things like insurance, warranties, whatever else, whatever it is that they got on their list. They can make money after the fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my question, real quick, and maybe it's just, I don't know if everybody listening understands. I don't. For a realtor, a real estate agent, they can't offer those services to their client, right? Does that represent a conflict of interest for them, or how does that work exactly? Do you know?
So they actually can,
Okay.
and here's why. When I first got into the industry, I'm like, why are all these big companies going after agents? Because that was the trope for the past however
Mm-hmm.
many decades. Agents, they're in contact with all the buyers, all the sellers. That's who we want to get. That's where we're going to get our data. But I remember thinking, one of my first years in business, I think I was like 2.5 years in, I hit 318 inspections.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, nice. And I remember an agent saying, you're never going to make it. And I looked and she had sold 8 homes that last year. And I'm like, that's kind of a moderate week for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Right.
like, I touched 318 clients. I didn't touch them. You know what I mean? Like, sounds weird.
We gotcha.
Okay, you got me. And they only had contact with 8.
Mm.
And I'm like, why do they have, companies that send out reps and they would like, hey, offer this warranty or do this to your clients, take
Mm-hmm.
them out to lunch. And I'm like, I feel like I have more contact.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of that is we have first contact in a lot of ways for
Mhm.
that aspect of the field.
Mm.
So for the data, the agents typically don't start trying to sell you on the warranties and all the homeowners insurance and concierge service. They actually offer those. There's programs that agents have out there for them.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons we never offered any warranties in the past, among many reasons, was the agents in our area actually got upset when we even talked about it. They're like, that's the stuff we offer.
Okay.
We won't recommend you if you do that. We had multiple offices that loved us for years, and they're like, we make money off of that. Don't do that. It's not so much now because a lot of home inspectors offer it. But we give the data out if we're doing that,
Mm-hmm.
if that's our thing. So if you're with Porch and you give data to Porch, Porch starts calling pretty quickly after that, whereas the agent usually doesn't hand that stuff out until after the deal is closed. So Porch is able to get in there well before the agent does.
Okay.
Now, maybe agents have or will be changing that process so that you kind of get more of that up front.
Mm.
But it's genius on the level of how can corporate America take over a small industry and make a bunch of money and have access to data first. From that aspect is genius. From our standpoint, I think everybody listening knows how I feel.
Mm.
I'm going off again. So
Yeah, no,
does that
it's
kind of
just
answer
a
your
question. Yeah, because I was just trying to understand, like, why is the focus on the home inspection industry and not like, realtors, like, marketing and capitalizing on realtors. But the answer to that, basically from your answer I got, is like there are so many more realtors than home inspectors. It's much bigger. It's more segmented. So it's like trying to hug a water balloon, herding cats. You're not going to be able to get all of that as unified as the home inspection market. I guess would that be an accurate synopsis?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Okay.
So in my area, there are 300-400 home inspectors, but there are almost, depending on the time of the year or who's active, 4,000 to 6,000 agents.
Mm-hmm.
So to touch all of the client's data in an area, would you rather go after 5,000
Yeah.
agents or
Yeah.
go after a few hundred home inspectors? Then each home inspector is worth multiple agents.
Right.
Slowest home inspector in your market that does 10 inspections a year still does more than the average agent.
Right.
So
Right.
you have a home inspector that does 300. I mean, that's worth 3 offices worth of agents.
Right. Right. Yeah. And then there's the richer data set, right? So, I mean, an agent can take pretty pictures. They can say how many, rooms and everything, or what kind of this and that, the basic details in a listing. But a home inspector's data, I mean, that's much richer, much more information about the home itself.
That's an incredible point. We provide more data on the details of the home, things like what they want, appliances, pictures of data plates, any issues with the home. Oh, insurance companies would love to know the condition of your roof when you bought the house, when you do an insurance claim 3 years later when a tree falls on it.
Mhm.
All of that stuff the agent doesn't have. So all the agent has is address, listing photos, which are available online anyways,
Mhm.
and yeah, basically everything they have is already in the MLS or available online.
Mhm.
Home inspector has proprietary data, information about the house. So yeah, that's a fantastic point, Beon.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we understand from past episodes and anybody who kept up on this conversation so far that, make no mistake, there's money to be made off of the data that home inspectors generate. There's lots of valuable information. And that's obviously why so many are coming into the space. One of the reasons. Now, I don't know. I'm not sure if you have a clear direction here with us, because if I'm sending us off on a tangent, then so be it. But because last week, or it was 2 weeks ago when you did the inspection news thing with David, you guys brought up Inspectify, and that was an interesting business model, because especially if we're looking at standardizing pricing on their platform. To me, I don't know, just thinking about it from a home inspector's point of view, I can understand that there'd be some advantages to maybe having I guess they've partnered with an MLS in South Carolina. So let's say you're a home inspector in South Carolina. Times are kind of slow, and you just want some regular business, and somebody like Inspectify can provide that for you. That's great, perfect. But as soon as you're standardizing the price of something, you move it to being a commodity by default. And so now people aren't looking like, oh, well, which home inspection is the cheapest, or who's the better home inspector? Because as far as I understand, there's limited contact between the home inspector and the client, I think, right? In their model. I could be wrong.
In the Inspectify model,
Yeah.
typically limited contact.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're a commodity. You're somebody who comes in and does a job, and off you go. You get your money, and off you go. Now, that does simplify the business model for home inspectors in a big way. You have to worry less about marketing. But then what is going to differentiate you from the next? And who makes that decision? Who makes the decision as far as how much business you get? And you're a commodity. You're basically like the guy down the road sells it for so much, and he sells it for so much. Or now the price isn't an issue. It's like, what am I getting for it? And if it's at a fixed price, I also worry about the quality of the actual inspection. And not to say that any home inspector would ever willingly do a bad job, but just think about it. If you have to do so many inspections to make ends meet, you're not going to get to love every client that you're on. So you're just, as a necessity, you're going to have to move a lot quicker to be able to get through stuff. So I don't know, I'm just kind of throwing a lot of stuff at the screen here to see what sticks. But those were just a few things that came to mind as I was thinking about that business model and how it would affect home inspectors.
Yeah, David brought out the Walmart model, and I brought out the McDonald's model, and I pick on McDonald's a lot. Have you ever seen the documentary where Super Size Me, it was called?
Yes.
Many years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. That started my whole rant on McDonald's. But anyways, great documentary. Loose science, but interesting to watch.
So if anybody's wondering, you probably all know about supersizing. But basically, this guy would go to McDonald's for how long was it? A year?
Oh yeah, it was something like that.
He had to go to McDonald's and basically just all he had to eat was McDonald's for a year. And if they offered to supersize it, he had to accept, right?
Yep.
And finish the meal.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
It was nuts. But anyways, that I digress. But one of the reasons I pick on McDonald's a lot, because their corporate way of going about things is very similar to what's happening in our industry. So think about the products that they buy. Let's just talk about hamburger. Years ago, McDonald's had to start buying hamburger in bulk of a certain quality and also certain consistency and everything. So they found suppliers, and the supplier said, yeah, we'll go ahead and do this. And McDonald's started to pay a fair price. So I see Inspectify basically doing that personally. Go in, let's pay them what we consider a fair price. But this is what happened with McDonald's. McDonald's said, now we're the biggest meat purchaser, one of the biggest meat purchasers in the country. This is what we will pay for the same quality meat. And I only found out about this because a few years back, basically these meat farmers said, we cannot produce quality meat that meets U.S. standards with the prices that McDonald's is willing to pay us. So then McDonald's would just go to the next meat dealer. They'd find other ways to cut corners, and the quality of the meat kept going down and down and down until you had these weird little rubber patties that we have now.
Hmm.
So that's basically what it came down to, was they controlled the prices after that. So I kind of see the same or similar thing happening eventually with Inspectify. Is it a fair price they're paying in California? And that's where they're doing it right now, is just California. And also it appears that they started, from what I can tell anyways, their own home inspection company in Texas. But California is where they're starting standardized pricing. Once that spreads, that standardizes a lot of our pricing, as I talked about last time. But also, what happens when they're like, okay, they have 2,000 inspectors, they say on their website. What happens when they have 15,000 or even 10,000? That's half the active market, 10,000 inspectors. And they say, this is what we will pay for an inspection. Just like McDonald's says, this is what we will pay for meat. They're eventually just going to have to go and find the inspector that will accept it at that price. That's what appraisers do now.
Yep.
Appraisers just have to accept the price that the management companies pick. And I keep bringing that up because this is exactly what happened to appraisers. Tell me you've met a happy appraiser. Because I have not yet. I actually teach them. I've taught hundreds, if not thousands, of appraisers in my classes, and they all say the same things. I got to get into home inspections. Because of the management companies. It really does worry me, Beon. That bothers me.
Yeah. It's a really complex issue to try and break down. You know, it's funny, David brought up Walmart. And I just recently done some reading and learned about Sam Walton, you know, the guy who started Walmart. And he actually, when Walmart started, it was, you know, one of the brands that was sort of the pride of America. You know, Walmart was a good brand because they started off with a good reason. Their reason for starting business is they wanted to be able to get products at a fair price to everyone in the country. And that's what he started doing. That's why he had Walmart showing up everywhere. So his intentions were good. He as a person, even, he was really awesome. He was known for coming in on Saturdays because his employees came in on Saturdays, you know, and he would often work the checkout lines with people, knew everybody's names, that kind of guy, you know. So Walmart had a really good reputation, and it was a loved brand. Even the towns and cities and whatever wanted Walmart in the community because it was good. It brought employment. It brought, you know, helped feed families, all that kind of stuff. But after Sam Walton disappeared, everybody knows what happened. Walmart became obsessed with one thing only, and that was price. Price became king. And they lost all their other values that their founder had established. And that story, I guess, I see playing out in the home inspection industry if all of these big companies kind of have their way and just do whatever they feel is best for them, who ends up benefiting, who ends up losing at the end of the day. So obviously home inspectors stand to lose quite a bit if the industry is controlled by larger corporations. But I think the biggest question I want to have answered is the why. What is the motivation? Who benefits from this? What is the homeowner getting out of this? Do they get better service? So somebody reason, okay, you'll get better, more accurate insurance appraisals or insurance premium because we know the condition of your home, or you'll have access to more products in one spot. It's convenient. You can just, we'll provide you with this and this and this and this. But at the end of the day, especially with fixed pricing, what is the quality of the inspection eventually going to be? Like you were just describing the meat model with McDonald's. How is that going to be good for the consumer? You got stuff missed on your inspections just because your poor inspector is just trying his best to get through and get out, So it can change the industry in a massive way. And I feel it's a thing that we need to be talking about and asking these questions and making smart decisions, because otherwise, if we just concentrating on price and we just concentrating on a commodity market, we start having commodity market thinking, like competing. How am I going to be better than the next guy? Oh, well, he's charging so much, I have to charge that much. If that's the only way that we're thinking, we're eventually just going to kind of follow the industry into a bad place. And I think we at least need to start the conversation. I don't think we have the answers, and we don't know all the questions even to be asking at this point. But we need to start the conversation on this.
Yeah, and I think we have started the conversation many times. I'm just still worried about, people get a stain on their ceiling, and they say that stain hasn't changed in years. My uncle always taught me, draw a pencil circle around it, like draw an outline of that stain, and then you'll notice that the stain will go past the outline if it's continuous. Mm-hmm. But people are still convinced, no, it hasn't changed, because it happens so slowly. Mm-hmm. We're becoming more and more comfortable with the stain on the ceiling, so to speak, in our industry. Yeah. It's getting bigger, but we talk about it less. Mm-hmm. Remember years ago when ISN got bought by Porch, and everybody freaked out and were all upset, and it was the only thing we talked about. Now we're all like, meh, okay. Yeah. But that's the problem. We're feeding the lion that wants to devour us. We throw him a thumb, and all of a sudden they throw him our foot, and he's devouring us, and then we just kind of get used to it. Yeah. So there is no benefit to the consumer, in my opinion. The consumer is going to get a lesser inspection. The consumer gets a more corporate inspection. Mm-hmm. And then think about this. I inspect your house. You have private data, and you have an insurance claim, and the insurance company has to pay out. Great. Now what happens, hypothetically, I do an inspection on your house, and I work for a big corporate company that takes the report, generates it, spits it out, and next time you have a claim, they're like, well, the inspector said off the cuff in his report you might have 1 to 5 years in your roof. So now we're going to give you nothing because it was at 4 years, and try and fight that. Stupid stuff like that. That's just one example of things that I can see being bad for the consumer, but it's also bad for us. So I'm in the middle. There's guys right now saying, I'm retiring, good time to get out. New guys coming in saying, I can't see the difference. It's always been like this. I've only been in it for a year or 6 months, or this is just crazy talk. I'm just trying to get started. Then there's guys like me who's in the middle. It's like, I'm a ways off from retiring, and I still remember when it was, the greatest, it still is the greatest industry. I love home inspections. Coolest job that you could ever have. Doing cool things, finding cool things, taking pictures of cool things, and most of the time meeting cool people. Great industry. But that's slowly getting bled away by corporate. So let's get real with like the venture capital companies. So Inspector Toolbelt, we own software. So basically we had these venture capital companies that constantly, I had one the other day, Beon. I said, no, thank you. Then they sent me another email. I said, please stop contacting us. And they just won't stop. They're like, just a conversation. Please, just a conversation. And we've even had a couple say, there's not many home inspection software companies out there that are independently owned and in a position that you guys are in. And I'm like, you guys are like wolves.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, it's non-stop. There's multi-billion-dollar companies that are banging down the door to get to the home inspector through us. We're independently owned. We have no venture capital. Me and you are 50-50 owners. So let's make that clear. But they like our model. And the one guy I told, I'm like, you like our model because it's Ian and Beon and a team of really cool people that do awesome stuff for our users, and we have a happy user base. You inject venture capital in here and bring your corporate America, it's not the same. It's not going to be the same. It's going to be a different mentality.
Yeah.
The only thing we can do is take back our industry. And I keep saying that. That's our mantra. Take back our industry. And it's not that hard. Use an independently owned software company like us. Don't give up data to people who don't deserve it. Make money. If you want to use your data, use it, but don't just throw it out to corporate America. We have ways that we'll eventually talk about when it's released that home inspectors can make more money off of their inspections doing it ethically if they choose. And that's the whole point, putting it in the hands of the home inspector. I don't want anything to do with that. Cool. Don't. Okay, I'd love to do that. Okay, cool, don't. You're in charge of your own data. Once you do that, they have nothing to take from you. They can't buy another software company to access you, because that's what they do. Like, oh, I don't care. I do my inspections the way I do. Okay, great. But they're buying the software that you use so they can access you.
Mm-hmm.
They have access to you when you use their software.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things we can do.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of industries where they've been able to pull themselves out of the mouth of the lion and put things back where they should be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big, bold message. And you know what, thinking of folks who are on software platforms where they don't own their data, where their data is going to some of these big software companies. And I think, one home inspector described it the other day as like, well, it's like kind of like being on crack, you just kind of, it doesn't know what to do, it feels kind of stuck. And I think that's how it can be many times is you've been on a software platform for so many years, or they have so many features that you are dependent on. And to switch over or even to look is like so overwhelming. You hear some good things, some bad things. And I think, especially if you're a larger outfit and you do high volume, it's very intimidating to, get a new phone, let alone switch your inspection software. So that can be a hurdle. I think the message that I really want folks to hear from us is we are a young, very agile company when it comes to our software. Our main interest is no interest other than serving the inspector. We want to empower you guys with the best tools. We're not the biggest. We don't even have probably all the features that, some of the bigger guys have. But every single month, we are adding new features, and we are going to get to that point of critical mass. I think the invitation from me as lead developer for a product like Inspector Toolbelt is if you are like, you know what, I'm fed up with this, I want to do something, start the conversation with us. What do you need? What do you need from us? How can we help you? Whether it's imports, whether it's onboarding, whether it's a feature that's missing or whatever it is, because it's about more than just us wanting to get more users. We need to build something that is going to be able to improve the future of this industry. Because if we kind of just all take our hands off the wheel and like, well, I'm good, it's going to be too much work or whatever, before we know it, it's like, I know at McDonald's, let's use the McDonald's illustration again. Like anybody who reads the nutritional information on a Big Mac, it's insane, right? You look at all that stuff you're putting into your body, but we do it, we'll go on, we'll sometimes have a Big Mac. I don't know how many times people have Big Macs. I don't, but
I don't know.
But so you like know it's bad for you, but it's okay. It's easy. It's cheap. I'm gonna do it. It tastes good. But until that time, you go to your doctor and they're like, oh man, your cholesterol's really up. We really got to take care of this, or worse, So I think this is one of those problems where we got to start talking about some of the boring stuff, it's going to feel like we're reading nutritional information sometimes. But really, you got to think about the future here and make the decision. So, maybe we the burger joint next door and our sauce doesn't taste exactly like the Big Macs. But let's talk. Let's have a conversation and see what we need to be doing so that we can create that funnel and be able to be a way of activating that movement in the market.
Yeah, and I tend to get really passionate when we're talking about this stuff, but I think the word that comes to mind the most with what you said is collaboration. Collaboration with you as the inspector. Interact with us. What do you want? What do you need? What do you think would bring back our industry a bit more? We're collaborating with another software company coming up here, doing a partnership. We actually wanted to make sure that we gave them the best possible from us because they're independently owned, and that's big to us. We want to work with who's independently owned, who's out there that has the same mentality that we do, that we're by inspectors for inspectors. That's always been our motto. Mm-hmm. I'm an inspector, and me from the beginning, this has been what we do. How do we make everything work for the inspector? We can't make it work when it's just about okay, what big corporation owns this software? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. We don't integrate with any software from any of the big corporations. So we've actually been asked many times, even by those corporations, hey, let's integrate. We're like, no, thank you. We'll pass on that because we want to know, where does your data go to? Mm-hmm. What happens to it when it's done? And if we don't know, it's just not happening. Mm-hmm. So, those integrations aren't going to happen because we want the home inspector to have control.
Yeah.
That's ultimate. That's the only way our industry is going to win, is if the home inspector has control. And I'm talking about the home inspector that's a one-man show all the way up to companies that are 50 to 100 inspectors. Mm-hmm. It's your data, it's your client, it's your business that you built. Mm-hmm. You need to have 100% control of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think for us, it's been a few years we've been working at this project that started as literally on a napkin in a diner, So when it comes to building a business and something brick for brick, we totally understand just how much work and effort that takes. All the work and effort Ian understands even from building his inspection companies. The ton of amount of work that you put into building your businesses. And we want to help you to protect that value and raise that value. And a software platform with the right connections, with the right integrations can do that. We believe that is possible, but we need you guys to help us out. So especially maybe Ian, I can make an appeal to anybody who's multi-inspector, and maybe that's one of the drawbacks that you've seen in our software is you feel like, oh, I want more multi-inspector functionality. We are now currently working on the next generation of our multi-inspector features. We want to make it rich. We want to give you guys what you need. So if you are interested, we would love to engage with some of you to be able to get some insight into how you want stuff like that to work. And we'll continue to do these briefs with users and interested users as we build our software, because we don't want to build you something that's going to benefit anybody else. We want to build this for you and keep sight of the bigger landscape, of course, as well, and in what we're doing with other partnerships. But yeah, I don't know. We've never had an episode like this. I hope that you're finding it inspiring. This message is bigger than just us. It's bigger than any individual inspection company. And I'm hoping that it resonates. If it does resonate with you, please let us know, even if it's just to give a shout out, because we'd like to see sort of what the general feedback is in the inspection community.
Yeah. And, a lot of this can maybe even come off a little heavy-handed or, a little bit intense, but I feel intensely about it. The home inspection industry is close to my heart. Almost 20 years in the industry. It better be close to my heart. But I don't want to hold on to the old way of doing things. I want to hold on to our industry and evolve our industry. But we can't do that if if we allow the lion to consume us one bit at a time. So that being said, going back to our original question, where is our industry headed? I'll let you comment on this, Beon, but the way I see it is we are at a crossroad. We're at a very fine point. It could go to the left or to the right. It really, then, even just the next however many years is going to determine which direction it goes in. And it's a scary road if we go the wrong direction that we were talking about before. Lowered inspection fees, standardized inspection fees, management companies. What happens if this management company or this corporation that owns your software goes out of business or goes under, files Chapter 11, and sells off our software to somebody else? What happens there's so many what ifs. The other direction, that's a great one that leads to profitability. Our clients getting way better inspections because we're going to retain guys that are worth their weight in gold when it comes to the inspection industry. They're going to be like, yes, I'm going to charge what I'm worth. People are still going to have options. Do I want to go to Target or do I want to go to Walmart? Would I rather go and get this expensive pair of shoes or get the cheap ones? Yeah, those options are now still open for the clients and they get what they pay for now. But it leaves that option open for really good inspectors to still charge what they're worth instead of having to just get through inspections with standardized fees, which is the only way the other direction is going to lead to.
Yeah, I think you summarized it well. Maybe like you said, it feels like we're up on a soapbox a little bit, but I don't know if you've ever had us. I don't think you've probably ever seen Ian and me agree so much in an episode before.
I know, it's actually kind of making me a little nervous, to be honest. Find something to disagree with me about.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm encouraging feedback, because and I think you can tell we're both passionate about this topic, so we're trying to tame it down as well. But this is a big deal to the industry, and we want to try and put some weight behind the cause and do our bit as well. So. Hopefully the message resonates with you. If it does, again, let us know. But yeah, I think the last thing to bear in mind from my point of view as a thought is this is not something that we're going to wake up tomorrow and it's all going to be happened. It's going to be a slow process that's going to take a while. So if you're looking around like, well, it looks pretty good to me, it's just something to be aware of. Now is the time to start organizing ourselves so that we don't have to just go to McDonald's, that we have some other healthier options. And I think that's what we're trying to build here. So maybe, yeah, that's where I want to leave it from my point of view. I'll get off my box now.
The only problem with the soapbox is it gets slippery up there. So we try to be careful. And like Beon says, we tone things down, but we get very passionate about this. But I do think we do need to do an episode, Beon, now about nutrition for home inspectors, because when we're out in the field, I'll be honest with you, there's a few more chicken nuggets that happen than I'd like to admit. When there's very few options, really hard to carry a salad around.
Yep, no, for sure. I've had my fair share of Stewart's hot dogs up in upstate New York as well.
Oh my goodness! If anybody's from the Northeast, Stewart's, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, if you die in New York, you will respawn at the nearest Stewart's. There's just like Stewart's everywhere.
Yeah, hot dogs.
That's a video game
with the meat sauce. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and that's a video game reference, by the way. But
okay.
They're everywhere. You go from one Stewart's to the next. I love it though. I like Stewart's.
Yeah, no, but that's on point though. We can, but sometimes you don't do anything different because you maybe just don't know anything different. Like, what do I do? Like say to eat healthy. How do I do something quick and easy? Or so what are my other options? So I guess that's the point in the journey where we're at with this is there are healthier options. We want to put them out there and help you that it becomes second nature to know what they're all about.
You mean healthier options for software?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought we were still talking about hot dogs.
There's a lot of crossover here.
All right. I think that's a great segue out.
That's awesome. Thanks, Ian.
Beon, yeah, great discussion. Thank you very much for being on.
Yeah, man. Anytime.